Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm trying something new. I am in the garage, stealing my husband's tools to try my hand at building a piece of doll furniture. I would love to create more furniture and props for dioramas now that we've got space for it, and I figure now's a good time to start. I'm always interested in learning new things. So to keep things easy for my first attempt, I decided to make a shelf. My dolls are big, Rune in particular is huge, so I decided I'd make it 3 feet tall. These poplar planks are 3 feet long, 3 inches wide, a 1/4 inch thick, and were about $3 each at Home Depot. I start by matching up 2 planks that are the same length. Those will be the sides of the shelf since they're already the same length, and I won't need to trim the ends. From the other 2 planks I'll be making shelves. I want this shelf to be 1 foot wide, so considering the 2 sides are a 1/4 inch thick each, that means I need my shelves to be around 11.5 inches long, with the exception of the very top shelf, which will be 12 inches long so it can attach to the top of the sides for more stability. Hopefully I'll be able to talk through this whole video. I can't seem to shake this cold, so I can't talk for long without coughing or getting hoarse. After I mark the first shelf, I put the plank into a miter box to make sure the cut will be perfectly straight. I tried the miter saw, but it was bad, so I switched to using my husband's dozuki, which works a lot better but took forever because poplar is a hardwood. And because this saw is so short, I couldn't make much of a cut at once if I wanted to keep it in the miter box. It took like 5 minutes to cut 1 shelf. Once the first shelf is cut, I marked and cut the second. You might be curious why I mark and cut 1 at a time instead of marking them all and then cutting them, and that's because the board actually shrinks by the width of the saw blade when you cut. That space does add up after a while, so my shelves would have all been different sizes instead of being exactly the same length. I cut the second shelf by hand, my arm was exhausted, and I decided to make things easier for myself. This is a chop saw, easy to use, and it made this whole experience a lot easier. Once all 6 shelves were cut, I smoothed them with some sandpaper, which I'm not filming because we all know how much I hate sanding. Fortunately for me, I don't want these silky smooth. I want the shelf to look a little more rustic, so aside from cleaning off splinters, I'm not doing a lot of sanding. So now with everything cut and sanded, it's time for assembly. The 12-inch long shelf piece will go on the top of the sides to add strength, so I know I need to nail down through this board into the planks that make the sides. The planks are super thin, so I'm going to have to drill pilot holes for all the nails. I expect I'll still have some splitting just because the boards are so thin, but this should help reduce it. I mark placement for pilot holes 1/8 of an inch from the edge and then drill them with a 1/16 inch drill bit. I double check my side planks because while I know they're the same length, I never checked to make sure they were a full 36 inches, so I want to be sure of that before I decide my shelf placement. I have 5 shelves to place, so I divide that by 5, get 7.2, and decide to put my shelves 7 inches apart, so the very bottom shelf will have room to sit up off the floor a little. Once they're marked, I use this orange straight edge to pick places to drill pilot holes through the sides. In order to help prevent splitting, I try to make sure they're not uniform distances from the sides. So one might be an inch in, the next one down might be 3/4 of an inch, staggered just a bit so that nothing is straight down the grain of the wood. Then I drill through all these holes. The pencil marks will go to the inside, so they'll be hidden by the shelves. Since my pilot holes aren't in uniform placement, I gave myself the unique problem of not knowing where the pilot holes in the end of the shelves need to be. So I solved this by putting in nails for a shelf, lining them up on the very center of the shelf plank, and pushing down hard to create indentations to mark where I need to drill. Then I drill into the ends of the planks. I can't go too deep at first because the bit gets filled with sawdust, so I drill each one halfway and then drill in again to go the rest of the length of the bit. I repeat this for every shelf on both ends. Then it's time to put it together with finishing nails. I tap in the nails a little so that the shelves are held in place, but I don't want to tighten them up completely yet because I'll need to be able to wiggle the shelves a bit to fit them to the other side. So with a small gap remaining, I flip it onto its side and put the nails on the other side of the shelf into the holes I have drilled. I thought I could just give the nails a quick tap and have them hold it in place while I got the rest of the shelves where they go, but it took a bit firmer of a hit than that. Once everything is lined up and exactly where it needs to be, I can finally drive all the nails in. I don't nail everything perfectly flush at first, but instead take it all in evenly, and then when I'm sure it's all nice and square, I hammer in that last 1/8 of an inch or so. You could use a nail set if you're using lightweight wood, but since I was using hardwood, it didn't matter and I was able to hammer them in as is. I did have 2 shelves that split a little, which was disappointing, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it would have been if I hadn't drilled pilot holes, and it's not the end of the world. It still works for a rustic shelf. The last part of the construction is placing the top. I determined where I need my pilot holes the same way as I did the rest, lining it up and then pushing down firmly to dent the wood. Then I drilled down into the narrow board very carefully and hammered on the top. Though I'm using finishing nails, they're a shade thicker than the pilot holes I drilled, so there's still plenty of friction to hold the shelf together. After all the nails are secure, it's time to finish with a stain. I opened the garage door for ventilation, set up some cardboard, and grabbed this low-odor polyurethane my husband had left from another project. The can said low VOC and claimed that you wouldn't need a respirator, but honestly it was still kinda weird smelling, and if I had it to do over I would have gone to get my respirator before I got paint all over my gloves. While my dad always applies polyurethane with a brush, my husband prefers a sponge, so that's what I used because it's what we had. Since this is an oil-based stain, the sponge goes in the trash afterward. I rub in a nice thick coat of stain, top and bottom and sides of the shelves. I clean up any drips or runs, checked for mist spots. I almost forgot to do the bottom, but we get that too. Then it gets to stand out here for a day to dry. While it could be recoated with stain in a couple hours, I think this color is fine. Once it's dry, I can take it in and set it up with some of the books and other props I've made in the past. I considered adding a backing, but I think the shelf is more versatile without it. It's weird how planning the shelf based on Rune's height makes Pharrell look really tiny next to it. She's supposed to be a bit on the small side, so I guess that works. If I were to do it over again, I'd probably add more shelves and have them a little closer together, but I also think this was a great first furniture project, and I'm looking forward to expanding my collection of props in the future. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching! Bye!